Today, we continue with new criticism. We shall deal with F.R. Levis and also the new Aristotelians. I want you to pay attention to the slides.
So we begin with F.R. Levis. Now, F.R. Levis was a student and cultural critic of I.A. Richards. He was the editor of the journal Scrutiny, and he combined new critical formalism with Arnoldian belief that literature main concern was with moral and ethical ideas. He wrote and focused on the works of 19th and early 20th century writers, and he used closed system of the canonical works. In the great tradition, he notes Jane Austen, George Eliot, Henry James, and Joseph Conrad as great novelists because they used experimental new forms and also used the methods and procedures or applied these methods. Whereas you have the other critics like Cleanth Brooks, they wrote extensively on modernist poetry, whereas he concentrated on the 20th, 19th and 20th century writers. F.R. Levis. Now we will move on to the next topic, the topic which brings out the negative side or the weaknesses of new criticism. So they did have weakness as well, and the neo-Aristotelians were the ones who were less interested in celebrating ambiguity and paradox. They were against the new critics. They were called the Chicago School of Critics. They were also professors at Chicago University. They called themselves neo-Aristotelians, and they were engaged in bringing a radical transformation in the stream of humanities. These critics included R.S. Crane, whom we talked about earlier when we studied Cleanth Brooks, Norman MacLean, Elder Olson, Richard McKeown. Now, they published a manifesto called Critics and Criticism, Ancient and Modern, and they attacked the tenets of new critics. They were influenced by the Aristotle's poetics. So, neo means new, and therefore they are the ones who believed in Aristotle. So, neo-Aristotelians, that is, new moderns who still believed in the ideas of Aristotle's poetics. That's how you have neo-Aristotelians. It is important to locate individual text according to the genre or tradition to which the text belongs. That's what the neo-Aristotelians say, which is quite against the principles of the new critics. The new critics, they do not go for anything outside the text. Genre, tradition, all are deemed unwanted, unnecessary to the new critics. Whereas the new Aristotelians, according to them, a tradition or the history is important, or the socio-cultural contexts are important. Here, according to them, the neo-Aristotelians, they point out that a genre or the tradition to which that text belongs is of utmost importance to understand the text well. For instance, if you are to speak about or if you are to analyze Sonnet 29, Shakespeare's Sonnet 29, according to the neo-Aristotelians, it is important to know the history of whom, of what, of sonnet, its structure, the genre to which it belongs, the tradition of sonnet, and so on and so forth. Whereas according to new critics, none of these are important. Only the words in the text are of importance. Nothing else matters to them. You don't have to study the structure, you don't have to study the rhythm, you don't have to study from where you got the rhythm. All that matters is how the poem is presented for the new critics. Whereas the Neo-Aristotelians, according to them, they say to understand the text better, it is essential that you have to know a genre and the tradition to which it belongs. All right. So that is what the new Aristotelians are all about. Close reading, or otherwise called explication, is a distinctive procedure in new criticism. It is a detailed analysis of complex interrelations and ambiguities, that is multiple meanings, of the verbal and figurative components within a work. It is a detailed examination of the complex relationship between a text's formal elements and its theme. So it's all about what? It's all about the form. It's all about what is written in the text, the interrelation and the ambiguities, the interrelation between the figures of speech, the irony that is mentioned, the tension in poetry, the connotative, the denotative meaning, and how it is harmonized together. It becomes a harmonious blend, and eventually these forms in the text helps you to understand in depth the text, the theme of the poem is what close reading is all about. It is used as a major analytical tool in the academic system of France. It was used, that is, with the name explication de texte. So here all kinds of information related to the passage is analyzed, and the linguistic devices like paradox, irony, ambiguity and tension, they come to a unity of the text. That makes a unified text. Furthermore, an analysis of all kinds of figurative language, including images, symbols, metaphors, simile, is done rather than relying on the author's intention. So critics like I.A. Richards, William Epson, Cleanth Brooks, all of them attempted a close reading of the text. Okay. And a literature journal, Explicator, which was published in 1942, was devoted to close reading. Later, we will be starting deconstruction very soon. So later the deconstructive critics, they used this method in a very exemplary manner. Okay, so that's with the close reading. Period, or the same time when new criticism was changing the ways in which literary texts were being read, certain other approaches were also emerging in connection with other disciplines as well. So it was not just in the field of literature that we had a change. It's not just from the new criticism and the formalism that were emerging, but we had a total change in other disciplines also. There was a renewed interest in social anthropology, mythology and psychoanalysis. See, today we have come to an extent where literature has touched upon every field of every other fields. Like you have literature in connection with science, you have literature in connection with politics, you have literature in connection with commerce, you have literature in connection with pandemic also. The pandemic, how the pandemic has changed the lives of the people. A little bit of research using post-humanist theory in the field of, in relation to the pandemic, where man used to think that he was superior. He was everything. Post-humanism is totally different from humanism. Humanism states what? I taught you that in Renaissance. According to the Renaissance is actually a continuation of humanism, where man is considered very important. Man is the center. Man is important. Everything revolves around him. Man was given more importance. Okay, man as a good human being, man as a social human being, man as nice, and so on. Whereas post-humanism is a continuation of humanism, but it has a difference. It says, it decenters man. Man is not everything. That we have understood. We considered ourselves so superior. We considered ourselves superior to animals. We could tame animals. We could, stop any deadly creature. We could, we considered ourselves Batman and the Avengers, right? But we understood that we are not so. One tiny thing, so invisible as the COVID-19, that virus, that small virus is all that was needed to kill how many people? It cost, it raged the whole world, right? And how many people are dead now? Thousands and thousands. Man able to do. Man could do nothing, even now, right? So we cannot consider ourselves so great. So see, we're talking, let's come back to archetypal criticism. So what I was trying to tell you is there was a lot of changes going on. Literature and the texts were being read. There were other changes happening in connection with other disciplines. A renewed interest in social anthropology, mythology and psychoanalysis were coming up. They offered new insights regarding the reading of literature. The most prominent was archetypal literary criticism. Now, archetype is from the Greek word arche, which means beginning, and typos, which means imprint. So it means original pattern in Greek. According to these archetypes, or according to which this original pattern means, according to it, archetypes are the contents of the collective unconscious. They are the primordial images or the psychic residues of repeated patterns of experiences in the lives of our ancestors, which survive in our collective unconscious and are expressed in myth. This was said by Carl Jung. Now, who is Carl Jung? Carl Jung was a very important psychiatrist, a psychoanalyst, and was a great friend of a Swiss psychiatrist, that is, and a good friend of Freud, Sigmund Freud. Okay, and this concept of collective unconscious was brought out, or was coined, or was spoken about by Carl Jung. It is pronounced Jung and not Jung. Okay, Jung. Carl Jung. Now, so what is this collective unconscious that Carl Jung was speaking about? See, Jung believed in collective unconscious, unlike Freud and his other contemporaries. Freud, he was his good friend, but they differed in many ways. They differed, or they had difference of opinion when it came to various other topics like the collective unconscious and the individual unconscious. And Jung did not believe in Freud's Oedipus complex and all that being, there were a lot of differences. In fact, Jung criticized Freud, and there was a breach in their relationship after that. Jung believed in collective unconscious, unlike Freud and his other contemporaries who believed in individual conscious. Jung believed that all elements of an individual's nature are present from birth. According to Jung, collective unconscious is a universal mind. Okay, it's a human mind or the universal mind, and in this universal mind you will find things that is present in everyone, irrespective of who you are or where you are from. Whether you are from America or Africa or India or China, there are things that are wired in us, that are present in us, which forms the collective unconscious. Okay? It is born, it is inborn. It is there from the birth itself. Freud believed that an individual's nature is created after he was born. Okay? But Jung differed from it. That is when they had difference of opinion. To Freud, he believed that an individual's nature is created after he is born, whereas Jung considers it inborn. And according to Jung, it is the environment just brings out that nature. It's already there in that person, it is inborn in him, and the environment just brings it out. Whereas Freud, on the other hand, believed that an individual's nature is created after he is born, and the environment is the one that is responsible for creating a person's nature. It's the environment or the situations that creates the nature. That is what Freud believed, whereas Jung differed from it. Jung says it's already inborn, it's wired in us, and once you are born, the individual, the environment or the situation just brings it out. It doesn't create. There is a difference. Jung believed that environment only brings out what is already stored inside him. It does not create anything. It's not new. It's not a new phenomena. It is already the attitude or the archetypes, that is the contents that is already wired in him, that is brought out by the situation, and not create. Environment does not create it, or the situations does not create it. It just brings out what is already stored in him. That's what Jung believed, and this is collective unconscious. Okay. So what is collective unconscious? The idea this collective unconscious is, in Jung's word, archaic, or I would say primordial types, that is with us, that is with universal images that have existed since the remotest time. Thus, there is this recurring primordial images. What is primordial? Primordial means inborn. It exists in us even before we are born. So they are primordial images of human being in the myth, and myth illustrates those primordial. So archetypes is a typical character, an action or a situation that seems to present or represent a universal pattern of human nature. It can also be called universal symbol. So Jung was influenced by Eastern thoughts like Hinduism, Buddhism, the Taoist cultures, yoga. This made him very unpopular in the West to some extent. Now, archetype, therefore, according to Jung's concept, archetype is a model of a person, a personality or behavior. Every one of us belong to a type of character. Angry man, helpful one, depressive melancholic type. So archetypes have been present in mythology and literature for hundreds and thousands of years. That is from the birth of civilization. So when I say archetypes of the wise old man, the child, the mother, it doesn't mean a child. It means an adult who is like a child, or an adult who is like a mother, who has motherly instincts. And it need not be a female. It can also be a man like a mother, who is caring, who is sacrificial, And a wise old man can be as an archetype, which means a person having all the characteristics of a wise man. He need not be an old person. He can be a young person. He can even be a child who behaves like a wise old man. So an archetype is a model, a personality, or a behavior. Okay, and there should be a harmonious blend of all these archetypes in a human being, and this harmonious blend alone makes the mental health. So the mental health of a person is maintained when we are in harmony with these archetypes, or when there is a blend. For example, a man having the characteristics of a child, he may be innocent, he may not be able to take decision, he may need others to take decision for you. Like for instance, Ambili, the film Ambili. Yeah, so that's an archetype. That can be taken as an archetype of a person, of a man who behaves like a child. Okay, and that would be a perfect example, because he does not try to change it. He harmoniously blends with his nature than being in conflict with it. He doesn't go into conflict with it, or he doesn't try to change it and act as though he's a mature human being. At that time, the moment when he accepts it and he is in harmony with it, then he will have peace. Okay, so we all have this universal psyche. And therefore, they all get embedded in the form of myth. Okay, when they get embedded in the form of, they come in the form of myth, in the form of literature. It also comes in the form of dreams. But these dreams becomes our personal experiences. Okay, so when it becomes a personal experience, according to Jung, dreams are our desires. The suppressed desires. Okay, so dreams are the ones that helps us to get what we won't be getting, that we cannot get. Okay, so they are dreams according to Jung, and he differs totally from Freud's dreams. So he says that the dreams are personal experiences, and this, when it comes in the form of social experiences, you get myths and literature. So myth and literature is concerning social experiences, the society, the social experience. Okay, when these archetypes are embedded or gets embedded in the form of social experiences, you get myth and literature. All right. So like you have, it can be, as I said, a universal symbol. It can be a character, it can be a theme, it can be a situation. Okay, it can be a characters like hero. Heroes are archetypes. You have heroes everywhere, irrespective of which culture, which caste, which place you belong to. You have the devil, the evil people. You have the magicians, you have father figures, mothers. All these characters are also archetypes. There are conflicts. Conflicts are also archetypes. Like for instance, there is always a young versus old. There is tradition versus modernity everywhere. So these are all archetypes, and these are all universal symbols. You have themes, archetypal themes, like love, like religion, war. You have myths, like Adam and Eve, God and Satan. You have symbols, symbols of the sun, the time, colors, fire, etc. So when certain symbols, motifs, characters continuously or reoccur not only in a particular nation but many other nations as well, that is, it gets into the stories, having similar themes, motives, characters, and many communities, and they seem to acquire a similar pattern, then we refer to them as archetypes. Okay, so not just in one country or one nation, but many nations, where you have similar situations, where you have similar themes, where you have similar motives, characters, and or communities, and they have a specific pattern, they are given a specific pattern and it has a similarity, then we refer to them as archetypes. So the archetypes are what? What are archetypes? Archetypes are universal patterns or symbols or codes.